RWBY Manga Chapters 1, 2, and 3. Now, coming off of the Volume 3 finale, I found out that there's actually a manga for RWBY, which is super freaking awesome. And if you guys haven't read it yet, I'm going to be talking about like some big details, because honestly, if I did like a spoiler-free review, there's almost nothing I could say, because they're only like 19-page chapters. But definitely check them out if you haven't already. I think they're pretty interesting. Like, for the first three, they're pretty okay. I mean, the very first one, I think the first two might be a little bit jarring, but the third one so far is pretty freaking great to me. I love the third one. But the first one was really cool because it starts off basically during the very first trailer. It's RWBY's trailer. And I was like, okay, so my initial thought was they're going to start from the trailers and then build stories around the trailers leading up to the series and then maybe kind of jump around in between the show. But it's kind of like they showed the cool action scenes and it looks really great with the color, and you know, it was almost like a Sin City perspective with those first couple of pages because it really was kind of just black, white, and red. So that was actually really sweet, and then it goes to, you know, normal manga black and white. But it starts off with the trailer, and then it just skips right into some random stuff, and it's the girls at school, and it's like, okay, this is weird. It just switched. So that was a bit jarring. It was surprising. They have a couple of cuts, and I'm trying to remember. I think I was on Manga Reader, so they have like those little Sukomi things, and you can put it up and people can put random comments. And there are a couple of comments where people mention like, man, they have so many jump cuts in this anime, no wonder the characters look confused. And I thought that was funny because they do have things where it's like they're talking and then you don't expect it to just jump to the next sequence, and it's like, holy crap, that was a huge shift from what I was expecting. So they have that in the first one where it goes from the time of the trailer to somewhere. I'm assuming this is all taking place during Volume 1. It could be Volume 2 as well, just, you know, during classes. We don't, technically, you know, you don't really know. But I thought it was really cool. I still thought it was pretty interesting. The designs are interesting because in some of the pages, they look really weird. Like, Carden looks nothing like he does from this series. Like, that was very weird. Like, they changed his hairstyle and stuff. And then, and I believe this is chapter 2, but when he's actually fighting RWBY, he looks a little more like himself, like just a tiny bit when they have it where he's just standing still and he has like the hairstyle. But he looked like insanely different to me. I think John looked really good. There was one specific scene where they had Ozpin and Glinda and they looked exactly like they did, but then the other scenes Ozpin looked a bit different. People were calling him like Stein from Soul Eater, which is funny. And Glinda just looked slightly different. Yang, I think they did okay. They had like some very interesting facial designs in some of these scenes. They just had like the craziest faces, so it looked really, really weird because it's just not, you know, what we're used to. They're done digitally in 3D, so sometimes it's a little weird seeing it that way, and it's like, you know, they have to draw it expressively, but it's not going to look exactly the same, and it's going to be, I guess, manganized, even though that's not really a term. Well, actually, I guess it might be, but, you know, so the expressions would be quite different. There were some scenes where they looked a little weird because they were so expressive, and it just made them look like completely different characters. But overall, I think the designs were pretty cool. I love the fact that we got, like, those first couple of pages, there were some great, great drawings of RWBY, and, you know, getting to see the scythe in its different forms was really great. And it wasn't, you know, full motion, so having that great detail in a still picture was actually really well done. And, you know, of course you can look up some fan art stuff, and there's a couple of actual, you know, pictures done by Rooster Teeth themselves. But something about it was like even closer than any of the pictures I'd really seen, and it just looked really good. So I enjoyed getting to see all the different motions, and it was everything from the first trailer. So it was the normal scythe form, it was the shotgun form, it was the sniper rifle form, and then it was sort of like the spear version where it's not like curved and it sticks straight out. So I love seeing all of that. I thought that was actually really good for those first couple pages. Then we have our characters talking and stuff like that, and the personality is something that really caught my attention, especially for Glinda, because she sends, for whatever reason, it was RWBY and Carden, which didn't make any sense to me. I was confused when I was reading that. I was like, I don't understand why, you know, she sent RWBY and, you know, Carden in the battle, but she does. And I was like, that seems like way beyond anything you know, Glinda would do, because typically Glinda's like super pissed, and basically it's like everyone shut the F up and stop fighting, and that's generally what she does. And this was almost like this was the exact opposite of that, and she puts them into um, sort of like a little mock battle. So it was a little weird seeing that from Glinda, because it's not. It just seemed like it was out of nowhere. It's like the opposite of what we've seen her do before. So that was kind of surprising. But the battle was pretty cool, and now that I think about it, I do believe this was somewhere in Volume 1, because we actually get some cool stuff in this. And this is one of the things where it's like, this is really cool, because I love RWBY and I've been watching it since the beginning. But at the same time, I can't really recommend the manga to people who haven't, you know, seen the show until after they've seen the show, because otherwise there is nothing here for you to really understand and appreciate, because it's just like, here's some awesome stuff in the beginning from the trailer, and then it's just like, boom, it's them in school. You don't know who any of these characters are. They do say their names. I'm pretty sure they say like every character has the name said. But it's like, I don't know these people. Like, it starts off with RWBY by herself, and then it goes into the full team, and then we get Jean, we get Cardin, we get Glinda, and we get Ozpin, and it's just like, who knows who's what? I don't know. So for people who haven't seen the series, I think it would be a bit jarring, and that's the only unfortunate thing. I think this, and I wouldn't expect it to be like a retread of the series or anything, because that would be pointless, because that's why it has a manga, because the series itself is so popular. And they have done that where sometimes a show will get a manga after, and it will be like a condensed version of the series. And I always thought that was stupid. It's like, well, you have like a perfect opportunity to just make more stuff lore, and this is considered canon. So I'm glad they did it this way. It is jarring for people who haven't seen the show, but they can easily see the show. It's not like it's hard to catch it. It's online. So they can see the show and then catch up, and it's kind of perfect in that regard. It's very short, and that's like the big issue with it as far as I'm concerned right now. So hopefully it does get longer, but I think it's pretty good, because they went through and they went like full detail on some stuff that they still haven't gone full detail on in the series. Like, they talk about Dust a little bit more, which I think they explained that well enough during the World of Remnant episode. And then they talk a lot about weapons when they're having the battle, and we get to see RWBY nervous, which is something we've never seen in the show, but I think it made sense. I think just in that regard, it made a bit of sense, where it's her just in front of a crowd, she'd be nervous, and then she realized, like, for me to not be nervous, I'll keep my hood on. And I do think that's how they did it in the series, where initially, and I never went back to check it. I have the episodes, but I didn't check them yet. But when she started off, I know for a fact, I remember she didn't have her hood on when she had, like, her school outfit. But that does change, if I remember right, later in the series. I'm not sure when it happens, but I do believe they changed that somewhere later in the show. So I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh, so that's how they did that. Because I kind of remember that happening. I remember some episode, I'm like, she's wearing her hood, but she's in her school outfit. But when she first started off, it was just her school outfit. So I like that idea. It kind of showed, like, this is why they decided to do that. So now that's canon, and it's because having her hood kind of helps her get into, like, sort of her fighter mode, and it keeps her from being nervous. It's like her, that's like her true form almost. Is she, you know, she has her hood and it's RWBY, and she doesn't get nervous. She knows, like, this hood kind of signifies me as the leader and my strength and everything like that. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. And one thing that I thought was actually pretty interesting with this is the text, because I like the way everyone has their own personal text when they're agitated. So, you know, Weiss, when she's agitated, she has like this very thin text, and it's very proper and like perfectly lined up and everything. I was like, that's actually very cool that they did that. And then I believe it was Yang. Hers is like very crazy and stuff when she gets excited, because it's Yang and that's how she is. So I was like, that's actually very cool. I think that's an awesome idea for the manga to have. Hopefully it carries on. I'd love to see that if every character got their own sort of like angry style text. That would actually be pretty sweet to me. I think that'd actually be a very cool little trait that I don't think I've ever seen happen in a manga before. So I appreciated that. I thought that was actually very cool. As far as the designs go, you know, I mentioned some of the characters look a little bit different, but ultimately it's a manga, so it looked pretty good to me. I know a lot of people were complaining about there's not a lot of background stuff, but that didn't really matter to me. I'm like, you know, with it being 19 pages, I feel like that has something to do with it, because, you know, it's 19 pages, so they aren't really going like crazy full force, and it is monthly, so you would think that it would be longer than 15 pages, and maybe it would have more animation or something like that, but I don't know. I'm not sure why it doesn't. For whatever reason, it doesn't. It's shorter, and it doesn't have, you know, and the background stuff didn't even matter to me. Like, the blank white backgrounds, I was like, that doesn't even matter to me, because ultimately, they're just in a building. It's not like they're anywhere super special. Volume 1, and I'm pretty sure Volume 2, everyone was just like, you know, at least Volume 1. I think Volume 2 they changed it, but Volume 1 was just flat out silhouettes, like some actual anime. They have done that before. And now we have, you know, 2 and 3, they changed it up, and it's like actual 3D characters, but there are a lot of repeating characters. If you look for them, you'll see like one guy like 4 or 5 times if it's a giant crowd. But that's just how it is. So I didn't mind the blank, completely, you know, white space backgrounds, because I was like, you know, it would have been almost the same thing as having, you know, having been watching the series, just it would have been in picture form. So I didn't mind that they did white backgrounds. I just wish it was longer, to be totally honest. So the first 2 are pretty cool, but Chapter 3 is definitely great. I love Chapter 3, and I hope that these next 3 or 4 chapters are exactly like it. And I think it was good that we got to see a background for Weiss. That was really fun. We got to see, and you know, that's one of the things. And if you guys haven't checked out my reviews for the show, you can check those out. I've been reviewing it since the beginning, basically. So I've always talked about, despite the fact that we're in, you know, we just finished Volume 3, we still don't have a ton of info on these characters. We don't know a lot of backstory on these characters. We don't know where they come from and stuff like that. Even for Team RWBY, we only really know about Ruby and Yang, and we have a little bit for Blake and a little bit for Weiss, and we get to see, you know, not in like the greatest detail, but quite a bit of detail for 19 pages. We get to see how Weiss grew up and how she, from a very young age, was this same person she is now, where she was just meant to be this, you know, smart, strong, you know, young girl. And from her father's perspective, it's like, alright, yeah, you did, it's almost like, yeah, you did your job, is pretty much how he looked at her entire life. And that's why she has an issue with him. And I like that idea, and it was from a very young age, and she grew up that way, and so it was just really fun. And we have, seemingly they kind of changed around the idea of the trailer, which I thought was pretty cool, because we have the scene where she's singing, and then she's actually training and stuff. And not only do we get her, you know, in this next chapter that's coming up, which I want to say it comes out the 15th of every month, and I'll put an annotation just to be sure. If I'm wrong, I'll put an annotation for the date. But, you know, we actually get to, you know, we get the singing, and then we get to see her fight against this brand new Grimm, which apparently they can take Grimm and basically put their souls into armor, and it was a collection of Grimm. So they introduced a new Grimm in this manga, and that's a huge, huge deal, because it's not like, oh, it's just a creature, it's a new creature type of Grimm. This is basically like an actual spirit form of multiple Grimm mashed together inside of a living suit of armor. And when I saw the trailer, it was a weird thing. I honestly had no clue what was freaking happening in that trailer, so I was like, you know, people were complaining about certain stuff, and I, you know, when I was like reading the little Sukomi things, and I was like, honestly, the trailer made zero sense anyway. She was singing, and then she was fighting, but she actually has the scar from that fight, but then it still ends with her singing. So I was like, I'm glad that this manga kind of separates that and makes it 2 separate events. And I'm like, that actually is pretty cool, because her trailer was the only one that didn't make any sense to me, because I'm like, I know she got that, but she wasn't, like, it was clear in the trailer she wasn't actually fighting, but at the same time she was, because in the trailer, in the beginning, she doesn't have that scar, and that's supposed to be how she got it for the series, is during that trailer, when she fights the suit of armor. So I'm assuming she's going to get that in the next chapter, but I was glad they split it up. I was glad to see some of the inner workings of Weiss's family, and her decision to go to Beacon, even though she was meant to stay in Atlas and kind of work there, because that's where she grew up, and that's where her father was, and that's kind of what was, you know, sort of meant to be, because of, you know, who she was and what she was supposed to do. So I like that idea, and I love getting that backstory that we never had before. Of course, the introduction of a new type of Grimm, that was there's no way that could have possibly been bad. So I certainly love that moment. But I'm looking forward to this next chapter. I would love to see for there to be, you know, like more pages, especially since it's only a monthly thing. I would love for it to branch out and be, you know, 30, 40 pages at some point. And I'm assuming with it being 19, it's because, you know, there are just certain things going on, so they can't do like a super big amount of stuff because maybe the artists or writers, you know, the mangaka are doing other manga right now, and this is kind of like a special thing or something that they decided to do because RWBY is so freaking popular in Japan. But I think it was really great. I love what they're doing with it. It is canon, so I highly advise you checking it out. Even if you kind of don't like it, I would still recommend seeing it because then you kind of get, you know, extra information and some of this stuff. And considering we're on, you know, I don't want to say hiatus, but, you know, we're going from season 3 or volume 3 to volume 4, we have quite a bit of time, and this will be kind of our RWBY fix for a while. It'll be way less frequent compared to when the series is on. It won't, you know, it's once a month instead of every week. But I like that idea. It, you know, it gives us mini stories, you know, until we wait for the next volume, and it could be stuff that may or may not correlate into the actual series, which I assume it will because, like I said, it's meant to be canon. So I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what we get to learn. Who knows what's going to happen, you know, and because I finished volume 3, I'm going to talk about a little bit of stuff with that, but who knows what we're going to get to learn about characters like Ozpin, because there are certain characters that probably won't be showing up too soon in the next volume, and we might get some cool backstory on them that we just don't have. We might get to learn stuff about, you know, characters from Team Juniper, like one in particular, and that's all I'll say about that. But who knows? Like, there's a lot of backstory that we just don't know whatsoever. There's a lot of story about villains that we don't know. There's a lot of story about the heroes that we don't know. And there's a lot of stories about the world in general that we just don't know. We've been given quite a few, like, just broad strokes of the world. So we kind of know the history of what has and hasn't happened, but not in, like, big details. But I think this will probably stick to the main characters anyway. And I'm fine with that because basically any new information is perfect information as far as I'm concerned. But I did like these first 3 chapters. I do hope that it gets popular enough to expand, you know, if not to a weekly series, then at least to just a 40-page a month series, because that's what we normally get. If it's like monthly, it'll be like 30-40 pages. So it's like, man, it kind of sucks that it comes out monthly, but it has as many pages as like Naruto would have, which came out weekly. So it would have like the same pages as Naruto, but it would come out, you know, monthly, like Soul Eater or something. So it's like, that kind of sucks. But it is enjoyable. These first 3 chapters were good. The third one, like I said, was definitely my favorite. I will be doing monthly reviews for the series from now on. So I'll be trying to make sure I read it and review it the day that it's released, you know, admittedly illegally on the websites that I go on. But I'm going to try to keep up with this one. I definitely will because I love RWBY so much. So I'm going to be keeping up with it. I definitely want to know what you guys think about the first 3 chapters, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I've asked this several times before, because of the World of Remnant episodes, what people want to see as far as backstory or extra stuff about the world. But now we have a whole manga series to do the same thing, and I think this one will focus specifically on the characters, while, you know, World of Remnant was the world of Remnant. This manga, I think, will have a great singular focus per maybe 2 or 3 chapters. Will focus on, like, you know, one character at a time. Hopefully, I'd prefer to see it that way, rather than like just little random adventures that kind of ultimately amount to nothing, really. As long as it's like little character development, I think I'd be okay with that too. But I want to know what backstories you guys want to see first. You know, what adventures you think we ought to see. Maybe some stuff that happened during like the Volume 2 finale, or, you know, missions that were being taking place by other teams while RWBY, you know, Team RWBY was going out and doing their stuff. So maybe we'll get to see things like that, because Team RWBY, you know, in like Volume 2, they're going off and doing their own mission. Sun and Neptune are, you know, junior police within the town. That could be a funny, you know, funny chapter or something like that. We get to see possibly all of Team Sun, you know, kind of going out and doing their own thing, and I think that'll be pretty funny. But I don't know, there's a ton of possibility, and I think so far, it's especially with the way the last chapter started and ended, it's certainly headed in a very awesome direction if they do that, where it's like, here's backstory, basically just for every single character. But I want to know which characters you want backstory on the most. You know, maybe what random side stories do you guys want to hear about? Maybe what, you know, stories from the world of Remnant in the past about wars or anything like that that you guys want to know, because there's a lot of possibility here, and if it's canon, they're gonna make sure it's important. And considering we're between volumes, it might actually, you know, have an impact on the next volume depending on what they decide to introduce within these next couple of months. So I'm excited for sure. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about these first 3 chapters, and you know, what stories you guys want to read from this, you know, sort of new side story within a really awesome universe that we still don't know that much about. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.